Welcome. All right, so we are at 7:04. I'll kickstart by introducing the gentlemen who are presenting the AiGile Evolution. By the way, this is a word that's going to soon be registered trademark. We checked it up online. Nobody before Loud and Agile Network presenters have used this term before. So welcome to Innovation 101 right off the bat. I'm grateful to them. So we'll start with Ravi Palakodeti. He's an engineering leader and AI strategist. He's based out of Greater Chicago area. I'm glad we didn't have to pay for the flight. And he is a senior director of architecture at ExoStar. Now I know where to come next when I have an EA issue at my place. With prior roles at AWS and GE, he brings deep expertise in cloud-native platforms, zero trust frameworks, and AI-powered transformation. He guides AI implementation and teaches AI fundamentals to businesses and technical audiences, bridging architecture, education, and execution. Do not share your phone number today, please, because you'll be hearing from me. And then we have our very dear Toby Rao, who not only is presenting today, but he is the co-founder of Loud and Agile Network. So how cool is that? He is an Agile transformation leader, an AI community of excellence lead based in the DC metro area. With 17 plus years of experience, he integrates executive coaching, leadership development, GenAI to elevate Agile delivery. Of course, he's an ICF credentialed coach and a trainer and certified executive coach. Anybody who's known Toby knows what an amazing coach and a human presence he carries with him. And this is why I say, of course, he's credentialed. He's got certifications in Databricks, Scrum Alliance, Pendo.io, and of course, as founder of the Loud and Agile Network, he needs no further introduction. So over to you all, and thank you for all your effort for our community.
Thank you, Meenakshi, for that glowing introduction. And thank you, everybody, for taking your time on such a beautiful evening to come and spend time with us. Ravi and I are honored to present at Loud Natural Network. And of course, it's really special for me because 5 years ago, we started Loud Natural Network. And it's always a pleasure to, of course, host all of you as our guests. And it feels special for me to be, if I can call myself, I'm a guest today, or at least a guest speaker, right, Meenakshi? So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. We have a lot of content to cover between Ravi and I, so we'll go ahead and get started. So yeah, Meenakshi, you brought up a good point about the word agile, and it came from a conversation. Ravi and I were talking, and we were saying, agile makes the perfect kind of team setting to bring in AI, and whatever topic we choose better be a good combination and amalgamation of AI and agile. And rightfully, Meenakshi, I did Google it, and nobody actually had that word before. So it actually makes sense. AI and agile together is agile, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in the next couple of slides. So let's jump straight into our talk for today. So as all of you know, the world is going through a major transformation. Um, there's no way you can pick up a newspaper. Well, who picks up a newspaper anymore? But any channels that you go to, or any kind of documents that you read online, uh, it's impossible not to see the word AI there. Everybody is using AI in some form or the other, and they've been using it for a few years. But bringing it back into the organization and making impactful results come out of it is what we want to focus on today. So between Ravi and I, we bring two different sides of Agile implementation and AI implementation. My background is more an Agile enterprise coach who is now um, heavily um, powered by AI. I use AI almost every day in most of my tasks. Ravi comes from a background from a very technical background. He comes from AWS background, and he's been mentoring, coaching, and kind of he set the foundation of AI in my organization. So this is a an interesting and unique combination of two sides where you're going to hear the functional side from me and you're going to hear the technical and the architecture side from Ravi. So with that, let's jump into the topic. So let's talk about the challenges, right? Um, I saw from the folks who are attending today, quite a few from the DC area. Um, Recent changes that have happened. I would say that's what about 9 months, 10 months, with Doji and the big changes in um, the staffing in the federal government, and that cascaded into uh, commercial and all organizations for that matter, right? Um, we all now have to operate with skinnier budgets and lower headcount because there is just that kind of scrutiny and all around us where it comes to are you producing the results based on the number of people. So all across industries we are seeing a reduced budget, a reduced headcount. um, in addition to that, the changes are so dynamic in every industry that I've seen. So all of us who are leading software development, leading projects, leading programs, um, all of us have to do so much more with less. And this is not a temporary phase. This is just a taste of what's coming down the road, right? So some part of it is because of AI. I'm not fully convinced that is because AI has come in. That's why so many jobs are gone. I don't think we are there yet. But the fact is that we are facing these challenges every day in our workplace. So how do we get past this and still produce impactful results for our organization and our customers? So the path forward is that um, agile teams, and I'm going to talk a little more about how agile teams and AI is just a perfect combination. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the next couple of slides. But what I've found in the last two or three organizations that I've worked is that modern teams don't choose between AI and Agile. They actually find ways to integrate it. And honestly, I mean, if you go to IC Agile, you go to any of the large Agile organizations which are leading the world, including PMI, right, which acquired some parts of our major Agile organizations. I will not name them, but you see AI and Agile together. So actually, it makes a lot of sense. So modern teams don't just choose between them; they find ways to how best to combine them, keeping in mind their company's culture, their company's thought process, their company's beliefs, their company's needs. Um, and the idea or some of the driving forces behind that is how can we bring in more creativity to make this amalgamation work the best way. The second part is how best can we reduce some of the, I was about to say menial, but repetitive tasks that we do on a day-to-day basis and kind of outsource that to AI so that we can focus more where we can bring the most value to the organization. Now, I talked about we are all working with lower capacity than before. So think about the path forward. I think one of the goals that all of us would have is um, how do we reduce the overload on the teams and actually optimize the team capacity. What do I mean by optimize? So there's a big difference between utilize and optimize, right? Utilizing is, okay, you have X number of hours, X number of people, and you're using them in the right way. Optimizing is where you have X number of people, X number of people, but you are bringing in technology and other enablers to bring the best out of the time and the time available that you have and the people available that you have. And then we also have a huge problem with flow in a lot of organizations because of the cut in people. Oftentimes we find ourselves that things are not flowing the right way because there's a reduced number of people in one department versus the other, etc. So the path forward is for us to find ways to utilize AI and bring that into software development. And the goal is maximizing value delivery, and that's the goal of Agile as well, right? To maximize value delivery. So for those of you who are wondering, like, what is this word agile and what does that mean? So in essence, right, what Ravi and I have found out through implementation, through practice, is that agile really is a combination of, three different sets of principles, practices, um, and cultures, if you will. So the first is the agile mindset, right? This is Loud and Agile Network. Hopefully, most of you who are coming here have some agile background, but agile ways of working. So, what is agile ways of working? Like in short, right? Agile, and let's not get boxed into frameworks, but let's think about just simple, plain, pure agile, right? What does that mean? It means iterative development, giving importance to people, having an experimental mindset, learning from failures quickly, and small teams, right? Just couple of just very high level things that agile when you think about. So that's the agile mindset, right? And one thing that I probably should have mentioned is agile mindset also means that you are open, you're courageous, and you have an open mindset, which means that, sure, let's try it. Let's try it for some time, see how it works. We'll take the best parts out of it. We will take feedback. We will have a retrospective and learn from it. So that's kind of the agile mindset. Now, Gen AI capabilities. I mean, this is like an ocean, and we have barely even touched um, probably even 10% of its capabilities that we know of, and it's dynamically growing. So how do we bring agile mindset, agile teams, and bring in Gen AI capabilities? And then let's talk about learning culture, right? If you have those two, right, think about it as a stool, and you have two stools. So you have a stool with two legs which are even, and then you have an uneven leg, which is the learning culture. So as an enterprise coach, I've worked in organizations where people are like, no, we we don't want to learn. We just want to do the way we have done it before. We're good with it, and or oh, this is exactly how we have done it always. And as Einstein says, if you keep doing what you've always been doing, you'll keep getting the same results that you've already got. So a learning culture is very important, and this is big time driven by leadership, and I'm going to talk about it in the next slides. So agile is really a combination of all these three. Now, how many of you have come across or have seen um, this? And this is classic. This has been around for many years. This is called diffusion of innovation. It's a theory that was created a long time ago. It still holds good. So what does this mean, right? It means that whenever a new technology, something that disrupts the way we do things today, how is it adopted across the globe, across different industries? And as you can see on the screen in the picture, um, there is a subset of folks who are innovators, who are risk takers, who are, let's say, tech enthusiasts, who are willing and happy and excited and passionate about trying new things. So that's a small percentage, about 2.5%. And then you have the early adopters. These are the visionaries. They see something working and they feel that they want to get in early and start using it. So that's the early adopters. And then there is a gap. This is the chasm. This is where there's a huge gap because we have the innovators who created it. We have some early adopters who have some mixed results, and then there is a big gap. Like a lot of people are really skeptical about using it. Then comes the early majority. These are the pragmatists. These are the practical people. They're like, yeah, this seems cool. Sure, I can use it, but let me use it for the very basic stuff till I get confidence on it. So this is actually a major portion of the marketplace, and this is about 34%. This is the early majority. And then comes the legs, which are conservatives. They were like very skeptical, not sure, not sorry, skeptical is the last one. Conservatives are like, yeah, maybe we'll try it, maybe not, we'll see, maybe a small portion. So this is a late majority. This comes in much later. And the last is the skeptics, right? The skeptics are generally not because of skepticism, but they might be in heavily regulated uh, industries, right? Any of you folks are from the federal government? Generally, and I want to say few till maybe 5 6 years ago, 8 years ago, they were very risk averse. They would not bring in any new technology. uh, but I think things have changed now. But this shows how technology is adopted. So that it begs the question, does this apply to AI adoption? So let's find out. So this is an exact replica of the earlier one. Of course, this was made by ChatGPT, but it's an exact replica of this, of the earlier slide. So let's look into how is AI being adopted across. So in the 2.5% in the innovators, we have the tech forward, risk tolerant explorers. And so these are some of the names that you already know, who have made a huge dent in this area. The next comes the visionary leader who are seeking a strategic advantage. Large organizations who have deep pockets, and they're like, okay, we don't want to be left behind, so let's invest into this. So these are the people who have brought in AI. I want to say, like, let's say 6 7 years ago. Ravi, would that be true? 8 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
Depending on how you generally classify AI, but that's a pretty good
yeah.
read.
AI was AI before it was called AI, right, Ravi?
Exactly.
Okay. So yeah, so that would be those people. And then next, the pragmatists. These are the people who brought in after the chasm, which I would say lasted about 2 years or so, 3 years maybe. People are trickling in. So they were using AI for very basic usage, but there's a large majority of that, and I'm going to share some statistics along that. Now the conservatives, these are the people who are like, let's see how these companies do. If they do well, we'll bring it to, we have some budget, let's see, right? And the last one is highly regulated industries, right? Like some of the insurance industries, some of the financial industries, etc. All right, so question to you, in chat, if you can put, where do you think your organization fits on this, from last to right, or sorry, from innovators to laggards? Where do you think you fit? Let's see it in chat. I'm trying to see chat. Laggards. Oh, Brian, early majority, nice. Okay.
I was actually thinking if Serious AI kicked off a year ago, was that still early majority or was that in the late majority?
So it depends on what you call serious AI. AI has been around for a while and it's been in making a lot. I think in software development, it had a slightly late charge to start. Jackie is an innovator. Wow, Jackie, I want to hear more from you. Aditi is late majority. All right, thank you for sharing. All right, so in the interest of time, I'm going to move forward, but keep putting it here because I think that's going to help both Ravi and me as we are presenting our talk. I think it's going to help us. So please keep adding that in chat. And it's good for you to know where you are because that'll help you in take the next steps. Pranav is early majority. I like that. Okay. All right. So moving on to the next one. So there was a survey done last few years. This is by an organization called Tech Review, and they've been doing surveys every year to find out um, like how much of AI adoption is happening in software development. And so I was particularly interested in just a, 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 a a part of that data, which is between 2024 and 2025, like what major changes are we seeing globally? So this data on the top one comes from McKinsey, and they saw that business function AI adoption, which was 72%, went up by 6%. Not a huge number, but still good. And this is across the globe, so that means a lot. Generative AI adoption went from 65 to 71. Um, AI in SDLC went from 90 to 97. AI developer tool adoption went from 76 to 84, and agentic AI, this saw the biggest jump, went from 50% to 82%. And if you can look at this one, I tried to make it like a newspaper. Pretty interesting, and we will share the slides so you will get to see this in more detail. So now the question is, I see where some of you are in your journey for AI with your organization. How many of you are interested in advancing your organization to the next level of AI adoption and actually getting value from it? So let's see some thumbs up in chat, or if you want to. Bharati, I am sharing the screen. Are you not seeing?
No, I am not seeing. So
And
maybe
we all are seeing.
okay. Maybe I'm.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Sorry for
Not
the.
a problem. No. Thank you for speaking out, Bharati. That's not a problem at all. I like Jackie what she said. We introduced Watson. Thank you, Jackie.
I will log off and log back in. Sorry.
Okay,
about
no
that.
problem.
Okay,
No
maybe
problem.
I
We'll
will
have a
see.
recording. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. So is there a way for you all to share? Maybe just put a thumbs up. I want to see how many of you are interested in advancing where you are with in your organization with AI. I'll take a look at it, and Meenakshi and Anju, if you can help me. But in the interest of time, I'm going to jump forward. So I think in January this year, I put together a framework which is on medium.com, and I'll send the link later. This is a framework which I call the LEAP framework. This is a framework that organizations can use to bring in AI into your organization. And basically, there are just 4 simple steps. First one is locate, um, identify any AI opportunities in your agile practices in your organization, and you can start small. You don't have to start big. And the next is to pick a couple of AI tools that your budget and your organization allows, and start with that. It's an experiment. Um, and then once you run those experiments, basically analyze and find out what were the results from that, right? Like what gains did you get? And based on that, then you basically copy paste, right? You take the benefits that you got, you rinse and repeat, and spread it across the organization. So again, LEAP is locate, which basically means identify opportunities within your organization. Run experiments to see and do benchmark, like, hey, before we brought in AI, we were doing this, we were doing X, now we're doing Y, and what is the delta, and is that beneficial? Is that something that your organization wants to invest more into, et cetera, et cetera? And then promote and of course celebrate successes. So let's talk about. So all that sounds like very theoretical, right? It's like, hey, Toby, you're talking a lot. Sounds very theoretical, but let's talk about some practical parts of it, right? Like results that we have seen in an actual organization. And I'm going to talk about the organization where Ravi and I work. This is our company is called ExoStar. It's we have global presence. We have our team members in the UK, in Australia, in India, in Cincinnati, as well as in Washington D.C. And we work in a highly regulated industry. And if you remember the bell curve that we saw, that the last part was the laggards were for highly regulated industry. Well, we work in a highly regulated industry, but we're also trailblazers. We started with Agile and AI adoption pretty early. So let me talk a little bit about what some of the things that we've done and some of the results we've seen. But before I share with you some of the interventions that have brought in the results, couple of high level things that I'm going to talk about is that um, this was a major corporate investment. Our top leaders definitely saw value in us bringing in AI and utilizing AI to take our organization in a new direction and open new doors for us. So this was an investment, definitely, which is bearing fruits right now. There was strong leadership sponsorship from our CTO from our CPO to the CEO of the company and across executive leadership team as well as the senior leadership. Strong sponsorship of anything related to AI, no questions asked. And then we also had AI focused OKRs and goals. And we make OKRs once every quarter. Each quarter, we have iterative OKRs that help in bringing in and utilizing AI with our Agile teams. And the result is that AI is now part of our DNA. So I'm sure you're very curious. Okay, Toby, what did your company do? Like, what are some of the things you all did? All right, so here's the reveal. These are some of the things that we have done. We have established an ExoStar AI Center of Excellence. Ravi and some of our other great technical leaders have provided AI training to our folks. We did quite a few AI brown bags periodically, invited the whole organization to come and see, and they used to demo our people who have developed bots and they've gotten results. They shared it with the rest of the organization. Resulting in cross pollination and an increased awareness. We have an AI bot catalog. It started very small. I think we have about 52 or so AI bots, and whoever created those bots want others to use it as well. So these bots are getting reutilized across the organization. We have an AI knowledge hub where we have articles and we have video links where people can go and learn. I talked about video leadership support, strategic OKRs. We have a collab channel in Teams where people can come ask questions, and that's fielded by people who have more experience. We have a peer-to-peer network. We did a global AI hackathon in the spring. I'm going to talk about it in the next slide. And then we are the folks who have achieved a lot, learned a lot, who are early adopters of AI, help and coach and mentor others. And of course, we have enterprise AI licenses for ChatGPT and Copilot. That's really going to be helping us a lot. And in addition to OKRs, we also have team level AI goals. So every team has a goal. So for example, we had a goal in our last quarter for each team to find out one use case by which they improve efficiency and another by which they are reducing cycle time. So this has resulted in a lot of positive momentum across ExoStar. So I'm going to talk about our hackathon. So we had a hackathon in the spring. It was one day. We had 22 teams across US, UK, and India. And they participate in that 24-hour period. We had like follow the sun model. We started with the India team and then moved over to the US team. And then it was evaluated by a panel of judges that comprised of our executive team. Are you curious to see what the results were? So here are the results, right? In one day, we had 50,000 lines of code with 24 Git repos, 8+ languages used. So I'm not going to go into each line, but the major benefit that ExoStar or a company got from it was really grassroots level ideas that are related to either the products that they serve and support or our internal tools how to make it better. So the reason I'm sharing this with you all is that as you're going through this journey, think about crowdsourcing, think about incubating ideas, think about grassroots. Of course, it has to be leadership driven, but then clear goal setting and doing events like this is going to help. All right, so last two slides before I hand it over to Ravi. Um, so what are some of the things that might help you in your journey, right? I talked about the problems that that we are facing in the industry and globally today, um, how AI and Agile work well together. I talked about a couple of other things, and then I also talked about what did we actually do in our organization that helped us to achieve the goals. And it's a journey. We just started. So let's talk about the journey, right? Like, what are some of the things that you can do to catalyze your team's journey? So the first one I'm going to talk about is like mindset, right? Like having an open mindset, an experimentation mindset. An experimentation mindset means that, hey, we are willing to fail as long as we fail early, learn from it, dust ourselves off, start again. You're not going to get results on your day one. So having that open mindset helps. And I think Agile teams already have that. Since the topic of today is AI plus Agile, um, that already brings in the open minds. Next is like iteration, right? Start small and grow slowly so that you can exponentially increase your capacity and your capability and your skills. I already talked about experimentation. Small teams. Is it's easier to make micro changes than making big bang changes. You already know that. So start with small teams, right? Start experimenting with small teams, see how they get the results, and then basically translate that across the organization. And then last but not least, have a bias towards action, which basically I mean is that don't go into analysis paralysis of keep on thinking about which tool to use. And that brings me to the last slide, which is, typical barriers that can happen. This is no different than any change that you're trying to bring. If you're a scrum master or a coach or any kind of manager, you know this already. Any changes that you're trying to bring, you're going to be facing some resistance. So think about the resistance you're going to get, but also have a positive way to negate some of the negativity that might come and help to push it forward. Lack of expertise, well, that can happen, right? Your organization may not have all the experts, but we have so many tools at our disposal today, online, through books, that you can learn. Everybody's learning. The good part is everybody's learning. And then don't like do a big bang of making something, like integrate with the systems that you have. And the last part that kind of is a barrier is where you don't have clear success metrics. So have a goal and try to achieve it and do it quarterly or even smaller, and you're going to get results. So with that, I want to hand off to Ravi. Ravi, sorry, I took 5 minutes more than I should have. Uh, Thank you, Ravi. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Toby. And that was a pretty good presentation. I'm gonna share my screen here real quick and
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Can you folks see my screen? Can you
Yes,
folks
we
see my
can.
screen?
Yes, yes.
Oh, sorry. Um, Welcome all. Toby talked about the journey that organizations typically take as they embark on AI, and the various aspects of operating as a company that AI can touch. Given the topic today of Agile, I'm going to focus more on how AI can help software development, particularly in the Agile shaped software development, right? So um, most of your organizations at a very simplified level probably look something like this, right? So you have a core team that is, developing a product, developing some, usually a software product. There are some extended specialists, right? You have folks out in the field running sales and marketing. You've got, your customer success. You have folks looking at the data, and then they have some leadership who's visionary and they're trying to achieve certain goals. And over the last few decades, a cross-functional team shaped operating model has been very popular and has been very productive as well. One of the foundational pieces of a cross-functional team is the ability for various specialists to communicate with each other and build a narrative, right, so that it is collaborative and productive. And over the years, a lot of tools have been built. Usually, they're very focused towards, hey, here's how I'm going to run my Scrum, or here's how I'm going to run my, product ideation, or here's how I'm going to run my sales and marketing campaigns, right? These are tools that have been around, and then you expect, or you try to build people processes for these groups to communicate with each other. So you might have a sales kickoff where sales comes in and talks to you about, hey, this is what we want to do, and then you have a strategic plan from there on. So that's typically how organizations work, and there's an element of Conway's law to it. But as we look at things like AI, some of these processes can now become supercharged, and that's because AI is able to leave things like Turing tests in the background, right? Leave it in the dust and start becoming a way to collaborate. So when you start trying to make sense out of some very, very specialized domain knowledge, or when you try to summarize things, when you try to prioritize things, the ability of a machine to be able to do that with you and help you collaborate and communicate with your peers makes that process supercharged, and organizations can really get a lot of insights from it and make a lot of plans from it, right? So I'm a little bit of a pragmatist from a software perspective, so I just built a simple website just to show you what that communication looks like, right? In terms of what ExoStar does, like Toby said, right? We run traditional Scrum Agile models, so we have all these specialized teams, and so we run traditional software development products, right? So we have some things like Dynatrace that are monitoring our software. We have things like Jira that manage our backlog. We have Salesforce and HubSpot and NetSuite, and so there are all these different products out there that help us collaborate and help us produce software. So I tried to put together a simple, and I'm gonna kick it off here in the background, so you'll probably see me typing for a bit. I tried to put together what does that look like, right? So if I was building a brand new system with a few hooks out there, how can I supercharge that communication across the various different teams? And like I said, in a typical model, this will probably be an enterprise software. So these are the kind of bots that Toby talked about, right? That we're experimenting with. But so I built this Agile assistant, right? So think about a scenario where, just like we had here, you had all these specialists from different walks of your organization, and you want to try to bring all of that data together. So in this model, right, I have a product team that gave me a backlog of 5 things. Let's say, usually these demos are either a rideshare company or a coffee company, right? So it was kind of late in the day for coffee, so I did a rideshare. But let's assume that you had a product backlog of certain things. You had marketing campaign where, your marketing org needed to reach some certain goals. You had your customer insights, some features that you got from your sales team where they won or lost a sale. You have maybe some critical engineering errors, and you have some, PRs that are already sitting in your backlog, right? So this is usually how a typical Scrum team's inputs looks like, right? These are various different, and then the Scrum team usually figures out, hey, what do I work on, this sprint? So I put together a little thing that goes out to a generative AI bot, and looks at all these different things and says, hey, okay, what do I focus on in the coming sprint, right? And as you can see, live demo, the code is going back and starting to put together a goal for me, right? And this is what a typical goal could look like. I'm not going to read through it, but this was generated by some of the things that we see here. Well, then in a typical case, you just don't want to take the goal as is from AI, right? It goes back to the pragmatism. Maybe you're swarming a certain team today, so you have a bunch of engineers, swarming a use case. So you might want to say things like, I have a swarm of engineers this sprint, and I want to focus on the engineering backlog and also handle the highest sales priorities. Again, these are the kind of things that you can do today with tools like generative AI, right? These are things that usually you needed to go talk to an Oracle, right? You needed to talk to somebody who's a specialist. Maybe you find a specialist who can understand all these different aspects, but now you have the ability to be able to just ask a bot, and you need to train the bot a little bit, right? You need to set it up, but this is the level of collaboration, and this is the level of intentionality that is possible now that these tools can help you supercharge the workflow to some extent. So maybe okay. So I'll say based on this, give me a sprint goal, if I can type. And then the AI will go out there, make all the magic and the churning in the background, and then it'll generate a good sprint goal to me. And if I like it, that's awesome. I can actually take it a step further and say, okay, I like the sprint goal. Make me user stories, right? Again, the AI bot can kind of do this. So the idea here is that a lot of the repetitive reasoning can be actually done by AI tools, and these are the tools that can help you supercharge and start focusing on, achieving the high value goals of your organization, right? And just put something together. So it gave me a user story. I was just feeling adventurous, so I put together another piece where I said, okay, if I have this and I missed a goal, what does that look like, right? And I said, okay, I missed that goal. Now tell me what my sprint looks like. And this is just something I put together because I was interested in checking things out. But the idea here is that this is the level of automation and this is the level of collaboration that you could do. Now, when you're talking about things in this level of generality, summarization, it doesn't really matter where in this picture you sit. You can come in and you can start reasoning with other people. You don't need to be a real expert in all the different things, right? You don't need to be an expert in testing. You don't need to be an expert in how to run a release train, right? You can start reasoning things, and the low water mark at which everybody can communicate suddenly goes so high that teams are supercharged. Teams are very, very collaborative and intentional in the way they operate. And just to finish that, right? So the tool gives me a sprint review. So what does that kind of look like in the real life? Well, in the real life, and this is something that we do in ExoStar, or we're starting to do, right? We've not fully matured yet, but we're on our journey, is we start adding these tools to places where we can get this kind of value, right? So we start introducing some of these tools into our customer service process, where we can start collecting some of this data, start understanding the types of questions we're getting, and start reasoning and summarizing with them. We use this in things like test data generation and test case generation, where some of these tools can help us make sure that the code quality exists. We use this in code generation in certain places. We use this for collaboration. We use it in things like HR, where if you're interviewing people, you can start getting together a very good sense of a culture fit. The interview part, we take it with a grain of salt because there is a lot of bias and there's a lot of there's a little bit of hallucination there. So we don't really, we've not trusted it all to an AI just yet, just because of the impact that it could have. But it's a tool that is in the tool bed, right? It augments some of those capabilities. Now let's think about an organization that is starting to do this, and you want to enhance this to the next level, right? So, well, you've built a tool, you've built a couple tools here or there, and then now you want to be able to enhance it. You want to be able to do more with it. That's where agentic AI and agentic workloads start coming in. So this is where you know how to use tools. You've put some of these tools in place. Now you want to be able to automate things, automate people processes, and start managing by exception, right? So to the point that your entire Scrum team or even your entire organization, including all the specialists that are in there, they're all coming in and everybody has a pretty good view of standard operating model, right? Usually the conveyor belt keeps going. And then when you spot that one thing that doesn't fit right, or that one thing that is challenging, or that one thing that is, really nice goal to have, then you can start, focusing on that, and you can start, you can start making a huge impact on those types of workloads. Again, going back to software delivery and Agile, what does that look like? Well, let's look at, again, a simplified example of that. So again, this is something that we do a little bit. Again, tools like Dynatrace and Splunk and other, log and monitoring tools have some of this capability. But again, I put together a little system that has an API in the background and has a dashboard, right? Reads stuff like, hey, what are my metrics looking like? What are my errors looking like? I can really take this all the way to, this model where you can have input coming in from all these different sources, and you can start making sense of them, on a single pane of glass. In this model, we're only going to look at, the errors, right? So things that happen on your systems, on your servers that you want to deal with. And then I could simulate a new error if I want. I can, keep hitting this, and then new errors start popping up. Now I realize that this is a backlog that my engineering team can look at. If again, as we looked in the last demo, right, my sprint focus was to handle some of the engineering backlog items that I have. So I'm going to just ask it to analyze my my error. And then the AI goes, into the background. There is a specific model that, understands errors really well, that understands code really well. You can tie it with other things, right? We can tie it with, your business goals. You can tie it with sales data. You can tie it with marketing data. And then the AI goes around, runs its search, and it'll come back with with an analysis of what went wrong. Again, typical AI takes a little bit, but so if you see here, it said, a bunch of stuff about what that error was and how did it handle it, right? Usually, again, if you want to supercharge some of these kinds of things, you want your engineers to be able to reason with it, right? So maybe you want a chatbot around it saying, so I see this issue in other systems as well. Give me a good way to handle it. It may have. Yeah, usually, if you have too many errors in your system, right, it has a impact on customer retention, especially if you're talking about SaaS software or things that your customers expect to work all the time. Again, this will go out to the AI. I'm repeating myself here a little bit, and all of these models are, they're tuned a little bit, but for the most part, right, these models have gotten so good that you don't have to prime them that much. The model distillation is a thing that happens, but you don't have to do it as much in a lot of cases because the models have gotten really good. And then, this goes out and gives me a bunch of recommendations. So as you can see, if I've started thinking about how does a typical Agile team work, it used to be a set of specialists who are talking to each other, who are trying to figure out, hey, what's the next best thing to do? Maybe they're writing it down on a piece of paper, they're writing it down in Jira. right? They're trying to get acceptance criteria in there so that everybody agrees on it. A lot of times change is happening, right? There is maybe a fire drill that you have to run because your biggest customer has an issue, or they have certain goals that they have to meet. So as you look at all these different things that can happen in a typical organization, a static model like this, which primarily depends on the ability of people to be able to communicate across your boundaries and know the language to communicate across the boundaries, is a really good nice to have, but doesn't happen all the time, right? These boundaries are very leaky. These communications are very leaky. And that's where something like, Gen AI can play a huge part, and help bridge those gaps, give you the ability to digest the data, take your time, understand what is going on, and be very influential and very, very intentional in how you operate. So that's a little bit of, the art of the possible. Um, and and this is, a demo slide, so probably skipped a slide. But what does that mean, right? So why do we want to be able to do that? And what are some of the early goals, some really quick wins that teams can have? So here are some of the things that tend to be, smack in the middle of software development that AI can help. And going back to the agile theme, I'm going to stick close to software development. You could have a very similar card right next to it for HR. You could have another similar card for sales and marketing. You could have a similar card for growth opportunities, right? Because AI being a very generic and a very highly used tool, you can kind of you can fit it into a lot of different use cases. But as you think about primarily how it works in operations and software delivery, things like observability, things like analytics, things like security are pretty well traveled in terms of leveraging AI and being able to get value from it. And then, like the slide says here, right, the cumulative value is that the entire team can kind of come together and be very intentional in swarming the problems. So what does it mean in the real world, right? As you think about all these different roles, a product owner, a scrum master, an agile coach, a UX designer, a QA tester, a developer, a senior leader, this list is not close to being exhaustive, right? You can insert any of the roles here. You can start seeing some instant value that folks can get, some near-term value folks can get, and then some long-term value folks can get as they start adopting it. As you move right on this chart, though, the people processes, the structure, and the discipline tends to be more important, because you don't want to get into long-term value use cases without understanding how the tool works, without understanding some of its hallucinations, without understanding some of the the issues that it might have, or some of the bad information that it might give you sometimes, or low value information it might give you sometimes. But there is the opportunity to really dip your feet, start using it, and then build some of the goals, to move forward. So what does that journey look like? If you think about it, right? So as we were looking at the chat earlier, we had some early adopters, we had some laggards, and pretty much every group in between, right? So how do you want to think about this? And this is a model that ExoStar has been using as well. Is initially start with the crawl use cases, right? Start with the use cases where maybe you have a custom GPT out there, or you have out of the box GPT, and you're just asking it things. You're starting to understand things like prompt engineering and context windows and stuff like that, where it's not really programming to some extent. It's really understanding how the tool works so that you can start working with it. And then as you go into the walk phase, and these usually you want to plan it quarterly because of the feedback loop for these things, right? You want to be able to put a tool out there, get feedback from it, learn from it, and maybe you want to use it, or you want to retire it and build a new thing. But this is where you're potentially building things like custom copilots and custom GPTs, which are geared towards either your business domain or a problem that you're trying to solve. And then over the long term, right, you want to, as you get into the run phase, you're looking at a mesh of agents. So you have maybe dozens of agents, or if not more, flying around. They're all collaborating with each other. the technology has matured enough that you can have them talk to each other, right? And you can have a swarm of agents, kind of do a lot of stuff for you, and then just call you if you need something. The analogy I give is that you're maybe wearing your Apple Watch. I'm not wearing it right now, but then anytime there is a notification that you're interested or you might be interested, it's gonna just tell you, hey, just so you know, this is happening if you care. Otherwise, everything is working as planned, right? So that's the model that you can get to, and that's where teams become highly efficient as you're starting to manage by exception. And then a little bit more about call to action, but I know we're at time, so I'm going to pause and stop for any questions. While I was presenting, I couldn't see the questions, so I'm going to skip back to this and.
Ravi, there was one question which I kind
Yeah.
of answered, but if there's further questions, Ravi and I are happy to take them.
When you showed kind of the website you had about sprint planning, what was the AI behind that?
So in our corporation, we run like Toby said, right? We have Copilot and we have ChatGPT Enterprise. So those are the models that we tend to run. But in my local machine, I was running Olama with Gemma as one of the newer general purpose models, and it's really good at things like summarization, things like classification, and it's able to understand intent. And for something like that, a general purpose model works better because you want it to understand text as compared to understand code or data. But that's what's kind of running behind the scenes.
Could you tell me that again? I kind of missed the name.
It's called Gemma, Gemma.
Oh,
yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Oh, sorry. Some people have hands up.
Oh, go for it.
Come
I
on,
see
Brian.
Niranjan and Karen and Ram have raised hands.
Who did you call on?
You can keep going.
Yeah.
Poonam. Karen,
yeah.
you can go.
Karen, you can go first.
Okay, so apologies, I came in late. My question is how do you get all how do you integrate all the logic and data? So these things are going to run, and how much time and effort is required?
So the time and effort and the logic are on a spectrum. These tools have matured quite a bit more recently, where injecting data and context into them have become very, very easy. As an example, Anthropic built this protocol called Model Context Protocol, where you can have the AI, the LLM, actually call your APIs and say, hey, yeah, point it to my sales data, or point it to my GitHub repository, or point it to my Jira, and have it directly feed the data back into the LLM and summarize it for you. So that's the level of flexibility that is available today. Things like context size limitations still exist to some extent, depending on how large your data set is. But even compared to about 6 months to a year ago, some of these things have matured quite a bit, to the extent that being able to put data, context, and some of this intelligence together is becoming more mainstream over time.
Okay, thanks, Ravi. So you just choose the right framework and then upload your data to it. Is that right?
It is. So the things that you want to focus on is initially you want to start off small, right? So give it smaller data sets so that as a human, you can wrap your head around the answers that are coming out, right? The AI can, process a lot of data, but pretty soon it becomes noise if you're not giving it a clear goal. The other part you want to do is do a little bit of research on, what model works best, right? And it's usually classification of the type of work. So is it a type of work that is mostly kind of a summarization, classification type workload? Are you running, analytics, right? Are you running any predictive workloads? The models that do good in these different shapes of work streams tend to be different. But once you know those two things, you can relatively easily put things together and start making them very valuable relatively quickly.
Well, thank you for making that understandable.
I'll take a moment to say thank you and close, and then we can take a few questions. I think by 8:06 or 8:07, then we'll wrap it up. So thank you everyone for joining, and thanks Toby and Ravi for great presentation and giving real world examples that definitely helps all of us to see how we can take it to our organization and implement these